Welcome back. I have another update for round 2 of the 2024 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship. This time it's just one game that has ended, and I won it. It was against a slightly lower rated player than myself. They were rated in the high 1200s and I'm in the low 1300s, so not that big of a difference. And they won the other game against me where I had the white pieces, so black won in both games. In this game we got the Caro-Kann defense. I'm not going to go through the entire game, and I'm making a huge change in the way that I've been analyzing these games. If you've watched my last few analysis videos on this site, you've noticed that I've gotten increasingly frustrated with the game review and the different tabs. This time I didn't even run the game review, I'm just using the analysis tab. I've changed the number of lines showing back to 3, which is what I used to do. But then on somebody's recommendation, because I wondered about if there were other options, they said, oh, you can change the number of lines to 5. It turns out when the engine's trying to run 5 lines that it's not as accurate. So anyway, what I'm going to do is go through until I find a place where the eval bar jumps one way or another, and then go from there. Here, after 7 moves, I've been, clicking through. At no point did the eval bar get above +1 or below -1, which I count as even at my level, except for possibly in the end game. 0.9, is a pretty significant advantage if you only have pawns left. But right after this, the eval bar jumped. When my opponent pushed that pawn, all of a sudden it says 3.9, -3.9 in my favor. Now it looks like they're attacking my queen. What am I supposed to do? If I'd had a pawn here on c4, I could have en passant it, but I didn't. I can't take the knight because it's protected by the queen. It says what I played was queen to d8, but I had a better move. Should I have just dropped it back one? I don't know. Maybe queen to d8 was my best move, but no, it wasn't because the eval bar drops back to regular. Okay, so that wasn't... I had something here and I don't see it. It had to be a queen move though, right? And I didn't think it was here. Maybe it was. Maybe it was just dropping back to a6. But I don't know why I want to keep my queen over there. That's the thing. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it wasn't taking the pawn. They could take back and I would have check, but then they would just bring that bishop back. Or they could block with the queen for that matter. No, if they blocked with the queen, I would get the knight. Maybe it was giving up the bishop. Take and I check. If they move the queen to block the check, I get the knight. If they move the bishop to block the check, I would get this pawn. And that would be 3 pawns for my bishop. I don't know. I'm going to turn on the lines and see what it says I should take the knight. Oh my goodness, because of a free piece. Oh my goodness, because my pawn is there. Wow. Okay. Well, I do understand that one. What should my opponent have played instead? It says they should have hopped in here and I would have taken it and they would have doubled their pawns and we would have been even. Okay. So the problem with that is that there's nothing defending this knight and I can just take it. Wow. Okay. I got it. Okay, the next place that the eval bar jumped was just 2 moves later. After I moved my queen back and it went to even, my opponent made a move, and then I got this knight out, and the eval bar jumped, and suddenly my opponent has a +1. So before that, I have a very slight advantage, so there was something I should have done besides get the knight out. I suppose the problem with getting the knight out is they can just push that pawn. So should I take it? I'm going to guess I should take that pawn. I assume they would take back, then I can get this knight out, because then if they push forward, I can go to the spot that my d pawn has just vacated. I think. So I'm going to say it's d capturing e4. No, it was not. It was a5. And it says they wouldn't take, they would just push forward. Okay, a5 was the only move that maintained my very slight advantage, but my next move was d capturing e4. And it says they wouldn't take back, then they would play a4. And I wouldn't take. I would get this knight out. Okay, I'm not sure why a5 is a good move. I have no idea. I mean, if they took, I guess I get that. I could take with either the queen or the rook. I don't know which one would be better, and I would probably pick the wrong one. But let's see, if I had played a5, okay, remember the line said they would play a3. They're probably not going to. I mean, they might, because this is just a 1200 rated opponent, but the engine wouldn't have played a3 here. The engine would have played taking my d pawn, and I would take back with my e pawn, not my c pawn for some reason. Oh, because then that would leave this one undefended. Or they could play a4, would be better than playing a3. Okay, so then I don't know why I played a5, and so after that, which I don't understand, this I do understand, but it loses a little bit of my advantage and probably would have been counted as inaccurate, but my next best move would have been putting the knight here, and that definitely would have been counted as inaccurate, if not a mistake, because it goes to 0.7. But this was worse, and it is because they can play e5. Did my opponent play e5? Because what would I have done if they had done that, I would have had to put my knight over here on h5. But they didn't play e5. They brought this bishop out, and again, my best move is a5. Oh, I did play a5. Okay. Wait, I'm going to guess I played a5 because I had no idea what to do. Okay, well, good for me then. I found the best move. I had no idea. And this time their best move was a3, and they played that. Okay, so we're back to me having a very slight advantage. I'm going to go ahead to the next part where the eval bar jumps. Okay, it was here. They had just taken here, opening a line of attack to my rook, so I put my bishop on b7 to protect my rook two ways. It would, also the queen and the bishop would be protecting it. So since the eval bar then jumped and gave my opponent a 1.8, I think is what it said. So I'm guessing what I should have done instead is just take the rook, and then they would have taken with their queen and then put the bishop up here. What difference does it make? Or was it taking this pawn? Because it's not a5 this time. I can't play a5. So I'm going to guess it's either taking the rook or taking this pawn because they can still attack my knight with e5. It was taking the rook. Okay, that's the only move. Bishop to b7 was my third best. Okay, but why is that different? What does this allow? It allows them to take my rook. Well, I knew that, and then I would take back. But they didn't take it. I don't know why. Maybe they saw a video about maintaining the tension or controlling an open file, and that's what they wanted to do. That's what I thought. I thought if they took me and I would take with my queen, then I would have control over the open file. But if I took them, then they would have control over the open file. Okay, so yeah, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand why taking's my best move when this maintains the tension. So I'm probably having a similar train of thought to what my opponent had. I don't know why it's better for me to take them rather than to develop a piece, let them take me, and have a queen on the open file. Okay, if any of you understand that, let me know. I clearly misunderstand regularly what rooks are for, how they're used, when to capture, when to trade, and which files to put them on. Basically everything about rooks. Even though last year I did quite a bit of studying on them, and that's where I came up with, I know that rooks belong on open files. It's best if they're doubled, seeing each other on the same rank or same file. Rooks belong behind passed pawns. And if possible, you want to get them on the opponent's 7th rank. But every time I try to do one of those things, it's wrong. Every time. Turn off the lines. Let's keep going. All right. The next eval bar jump wasn't until move 25 when my opponent played here. Now, I don't have the lines on, so I'm not sure what they should have played, but I had just moved my bishop here to threaten their queen, and instead of moving their queen, which is what I'm guessing they should have done, I think they didn't want to block with the bishop because my knight's controlling that square. But that might have been best because they had two pieces, guarding here, and if I had taken, they could have taken. I guess not. If they had played that, and I took with my knight, and they took back, yeah, that wouldn't have been good for them either. So that's, they must have been thinking that was best. So they probably should have just moved their queen, or maybe just moved it over one. Regardless, though, the eval bar jumped here to 1.8, and I forgot to go and move past to see if I played the right move. The eval bar might jump back here. It looks like what I played is I took this, with my bishop, and let's see if the eval bar jumps then. Okay, it maintains me having greater than a -1 advantage, almost -2. So that was the right move then, to just take the offered pawn and keep threatening their queen. Was it their best move to just gently move the queen out of the way? I guess it was, because it's still about 0.2. Okay, so I handled that situation correctly. I don't know if I was ahead for the rest of the game. I'm going to keep going and see if there was another spot at which I made a mistake. There was another jump in the eval bar, but it wasn't me. It was my opponent. Here I'm still up about -2, just a little over, and my opponent took what looked like a free pawn, but the eval bar just went crazy, and now I'm up -5. Is that because they gave me the free knight? Did I take the free knight? I did, and was that the right thing to do? Okay, yeah. Okay, so that was the problem, is that their knight was hanging. Here I had just taken a pawn, I believe, and they had taken this knight, which I had to take back, and now I'm guessing that they needed to bring this back. The queen needed to come back to defend the knight. Is that what they should have done? Queen to e... No, they should have played queen to e6 check, and it says I would have blocked with my rook rather than, trying to escape to the h file, and then they would have played rook to d1, threatening my queen, and I would have moved my queen here, and we would have traded. Apparently when they took and I took back, then they could save the knight somehow? Well, no, not there, because that's where they would have put their rook. Okay, well, that's a pretty complex way to save the knight. I thought they just would have dropped this back, but apparently that would have been bad. So let's say that instead of taking this pawn and giving up the knight, they had just protected the knight. Oh, that would have been just as bad. I probably would not have taken advantage of that because I never moved my rooks to the right places at the right time. But I can see how putting my rook on e8 would keep their queen from defending the knight. So if I had played that, then they would have to defend the knight by coming back. Oh, well, why couldn't they have just done that in the first place here? Okay, that was their next best move besides the queen to e6 check, was knight to d1, but that would have been at least an inaccuracy. Okay, so taking the pawn was a mistake and I capitalized on it correctly. Looks like there's about 12 more moves in this game. Let's just see if I played the rest of it right. We're still at -5. It looked like, you know, they were kind of lining up here for an attack, so I went for an extra degree of protection. They did this. Should I have just taken it? Oh, I left the lines on. No, I shouldn't have just taken it. Because the problem with just taking it is then they would get my rook, because then their rook would be defending here. Okay, so it's a good thing I didn't take it. Also, I thought my bishop was protecting this pawn. My pawn's protecting that pawn. My rook's protecting that pawn, right? My queen's protecting that pawn. That pawn is by far the most protected piece on the board, so it should be okay. I saw a chance to check here, which would leave my queen helping defend that, and it turns out that that was my best move. Wait, when did it go to -9? Oh, I didn't realize that the eval bar had jumped from -5 to -9 when they played that. Okay, so that's not what they should have played. Okay, so yeah, it's -8.5 or -9 here. So that was a good move, best move. They got out of check. Now it's -10, 12. Wait, what should they have done? Should they have blocked with the rook? It's -9, and they moved out of check. Oh no, it changed. It's -13. Okay, backing up. -14. Okay, I'm confused. -5.5. Okay, that's where we were, -5.5. And when they played this, it went to -9, 12. Okay, it still says -10 here, but when I went forward and came back, it said it was -14 here. So that was a worse blunder than they had thought. And so when I checked, it's okay, now it says -14. Whoop, -8. It can't decide. Anyway, they moved out of check and it's -13 or so. And my best move was queen to c4. Well, the reason I did that is because it's a mate threat. I mean, here I could have just picked off this pawn, but that's not a good move. I could have gone to g4, which pins the bishop to the queen, and it threatens to just win the bishop because my pawn is protecting that square. But queen to c4 was my best move. Again, I just picked it because I thought it would force the rook to move or the king to come back. And it says they should have gone rook to f3 because I can't mate here, you know, because the bishop's guarding that square. But instead, my opponent came over, so now suddenly it's -34, 35. Oh, and now I should take the bishop because the rook's not there anymore. I should just take the bishop. But then what would I do if they checked? Oh, I would block with the rook? Well, that's what I was worried about. Since they had just moved over one, I was worried about this check here, so I found a way to stop them from checking. I just blocked with the bishop. And then I can still take this pawn and aim at the rook. Now, they were supposed to save the bishop here, and they tried by putting it over there, but that looks like I can just take it. So yeah, see, they were supposed to play bishop to d2 or e3, so that's here and here. One of them would protect the rook. But that just gave it up. Okay, so, oh, we're back to -7 suddenly. But anyway, yeah, okay, I correctly saw that. I remember agonizing over that decision, wondering if there was some sort of trap, but I thought they can't get through here. The rook can't get down here. They can't check me. All they can do is threaten me with the pawn, and that's what they did. But that allows me all kinds of things. Well, for one thing, it allows a discovered check now that pawn's moved, because my light squared bishop's been sitting over here doing nothing, trapped behind that pawn. That turns out to be my best move, so I was happy about that. I don't have to worry about the queen being in danger if they're in check. Well, now they have to get out of check. Oh, and it says queen to h3 is my best move? Well, I didn't see that. I just saw I had a check here. So I have a check here. They can't go back because my light squared bishop's cutting off those squares. My dark squared bishop's hitting these. So they pretty much only have one legal move. Oh, they can block with the rook, but I would have just taken it. They have two legal moves. Okay, they picked one of them, but now I can check by queen to h3, which I did. And again, the bishops are cutting off all these squares. So that pretty much leaves them only one choice now, which they played. Now I can check them with the rook. Oh, but it was better to check with the queen? Oh. Okay, well, I checked with the rook because they can't go back over here, right? Or here. I guess they could have come. No, they can't. My bishop's guarding that. Okay. Yeah, so they have to go that way. They have three choices, plus blocking with the queen, which the engine says is their best move. They didn't block with the queen. They went over, which allows me to check here. They went down, which allows me to check here. They moved over, which is mate. Okay, so I did a pretty good job finishing that off. I didn't, make the best moves clearly. I made the mating sequence longer than it had to be, but I took correct advantage of my opponent's mistakes in this part of the game. Okay, but all the way back here, I'm going to go back to this. Okay, I had already forgotten what the mistake was, but that's obvious now. I think I just win a piece if they take, which it says that they would. The line says that they would, but I don't know if it would have been their best move. It's pretty close. It's really close. The engine thinks taking my d5 pawn would be just fine, and I would leave the queens facing each other and take here. Okay, see, earlier I would have taken this way with my e pawn, but now I can take with the c pawn because they can't just snap off this one because my queen is still there. That's why I think maybe that's why it's better to take the queen, and then when I take back, oh, I was going to say when I take back, then they would do this. And when I played here, that they could pin my knight, but that's not the case. It says after they took my queen and I took back, they would play h4. Okay, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I understand this one. I'm glad I won, but you know, obviously I could have been winning much more quickly. I could have just taken the knight here on move 8. Thank you for spending your time here. If you saw something that I missed or can correct something that I said incorrectly, which happens all the time, sometimes it's a slip of the tongue and sometimes I just don't understand. So if you can help me out, I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.